Welcome, welcome. We are back from 13 hours ago if you caught us on the DFS Chalk Talk. But here we are ready to talk some start sit, ready to get you through where you need to go to that fantasy promised land. Even if you're a team that's 0-6 coming into us, just meeting us right now, because that's the only reason if you're here why you're 0-6 is if you just got here. We can turn that thing around. Let's get 7-6. Let's win some playoffs. On my left, I got my man Joe. Joe, how we doing this morning?
That's what I like to hear. We're going to take those 0-6 teams, run the table right into the playoffs.
That's
Unlike
right.
the two teams we're watching right now on the NFL Network, this Jacksonville Patriot game, which I sent some Patriot fans a text, said, wow, you guys must be pretty pumped. I think it was 10-0 Pats. Drake May looked great. I think I peed and blinked, and now it's 22-10 Jacksonville. I don't know what the hell just happened.
Yeah, the Pats are pretty good at that so far. They kind of look coming out strong, but they have not. And I mean, they're faltering against a very, very decimated and poor Jacksonville defense. Although Jacksonville in London, it's like Jacksonville at home. They play better in London than they do in Jacksonville, I think. So that could be part of that too. But we'll see. We'll see how the rest of this game shapes out. I hope Demario Douglas starts picking up some plays and. I want the Patriots to at least be fantasy relevant because you got to have players from those teams, and it sucks when they just suck every week.
Well, and last year to year, like Jacksonville had a shit ton of relevant fantasy players last year. Christian Kirk surprised in a good way. Obviously, Etienne had a pretty good year as a running back. I feel like he was a solid number 2 last year. Evan Ingram was a top 10 tight end. So they were in, Trevor Lawrence was serviceable for sure from a fantasy perspective. And now this year, I mean, Bigsby more than anything. And Brian Thomas has come on, but still kind of has that inconsistency of a rookie. So Doug Peterson, you got to believe, like 1 or 2 losses away from, and he was so trendy a few years ago.
Yeah. No, he's got to be pretty close to seeing his way out here. Looking, like I said, the team's looking a lot better this week, but that's against a pretty poor Patriots team as well. So are they going to be able to carry this over into the future? Likely not. Yeah, that team, they need a different direction. They definitely have talent. You just haven't seen it this year. You haven't seen it with Etienne. You haven't seen it with Ingram. You haven't seen it with Kirk. You've seen shine with Thomas Jr. He's been pretty good throughout the weeks, but he's still even kind of one of those guys that just, like you said, very inconsistent, isn't getting a lot done as far as fantasy points, but today he's looking awesome, man. He's looking really good. But enough about that game. Let's go ahead and break into the week right here. We got a couple questions on the very beginning. We got a guy asking if he was wondering, would you rather start Christian Watson or Jalen Waddle today? And I'll go ahead and lead this one off. I don't really like either one of these options very much. I don't think that either one of them are going to get you anything more than, like, say, 10 points respectively. But if I do have to look at upside, and if there is one of the guys that can do this, it's going to be Jalen Waddle to me. It says Jaden Waddle, but yeah, Jalen Waddle. He's the guy. I think that they'll be able to at least get the ball moving a little bit. I mean, it's crazy. We were talking about it last night, how anybody but Tua can come in there and they just look like garbage. They just cannot seem to make an offense with some of the best receiving cores, 2 of the best running backs, even with Mostert out. I think Wrights is still a very adequate running back as well. So it's crazy that this team can't just put something together when all that you have to do is just basically get it close and it's game over with these guys. But what do you think?
Jalen Waddle?
I'm leading Jalen Waddle because I'm holding on to hope that somebody actually finds him downfield.
It's Jalen Waddle. This is a bizarre stat line. 1, 2, 3, 4 games in a row with 4 catches. But the high yardage for him in those 4 games is 46. He went 5 for 109 with 2 a week 1 and hasn't cracked 10 DraftKings points since. And DraftKings is a full point PPR too. It's crazy. We did talk about it last night because even okay, you're probably not going to get Pro Bowl production from both Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill if you don't have a quarterback. I get that. But for both of these guys to be getting shut down, it's just bizarro. Christian Watson, like that Packer team all of a sudden has wide receivers coming out their ears, and they're all pretty good too, which makes it rough for Watson. But I feel like he's the second most talented of the 4 after Reed, if he could ever stay on the field consistently. I think I like Watson a little bit today because I feel like that's going to be a higher scoring game. I think the Packers are going to have to stay aggressive offensively. And, I guess you're right. I mean, you can almost pencil in those 8 to 10 points for Waddle, but you kind of know you're not going to get more than that. Watson has the higher ceiling, but Watson could get blanked too because the Packers could throw to the other three guys and not him necessarily. It's so tough. I do like Watson a little more long-term. Well, here's the other thing too. And I just saw the report, Mikey. I don't know if now they're saying Tua is coming back next week.
Sounding like it. Yep. He got off the IR. He's in practice. He just hasn't gotten quite engaged in where they're going to be taking this offense. So, yep. Nope. It looks like he should be back next week. All should be well in the world, is that because, man, it's been rough over there, especially I'm not a Miami fan, but I've got a lot of friends who are Miami fans. So I can say with beyond the shadow of a doubt, as a Miami fan, it's been very tough this year. Because they've got so much talent, because they're so close to being this team. They just need a quarterback that can stay on the field. But really, it's really shocking that you can't just plug and play that position. Like, I feel like that's something even I could, I'm not the greatest quarterback in the world, but all you have to do is throw it close to two of these guys, and it's game changing. I mean, so I just don't understand why they're not doing so. It's
what is so hard about a screen pass? Because to your point, Waddle and Hill are two guys that thrive getting the ball behind the line of scrimmage and then getting the yak. You would think
huge
the
yak
absolute
guys, both
least.
of them.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really is. That's a weird one.
Yeah, and my only argument against Christian Watson is I feel like he's about the fifth read on that offense. I think I think you're going to look at Kraft first. I think you're going to look at Dubs first. I think you're going to look at Reed first. I think there's even instances where you're going to look at Josh Jacobs first.
Yeah.
I mean, so I just think
that. You're right about that.
Yeah, I just think I feel like Jalen Waddle's at least going to be second in progression after Tyreek Hill, which you shouldn't be afraid to throw to. Like, that guy should be a no-brainer. Get him the damn ball, but it just hasn't been happening this year. Well, man, Trans-Siberian says, my wife asked me last week, why aren't your friends not joining us for dinner? Oh, man. So I had a guy over here. We finally found out we had somebody digging in their backyard that morning, dug through a cable line, and that's why I was unable to get my computer up and running, is because I wasn't able to connect to any internet. But my house will also flip over to 5G, but it just won't on my computer. So I didn't notice it for anything else. I'm like, what the hell is going on? But like I said, finally found out a little bit later that that's what had happened. So sorry about that. We definitely missed you last week. I was frustrated throwing things around my house. It was bad. So that's the first question. Why aren't we joining us for dinner? We got a half PPR. Give me two of these. Give me two of the three. We got JSN, Downs, and Watson. Speaking of Watson, Joe, lead us off. What do you got?
And speaking of trendy, JSN at the start of the season, and then I don't think it was either week 1 or week 2. He did have that one big game, and you were like, here we go, but he's quieted down. Even Metcalf, I don't think has been as good the last week or two as he was previously. Seattle's funny. They win. I don't really understand how they do it sometimes. You would think JSN would have that number 2 spot locked down against versus Lockett, but Lockett still, I feel like Lockett's going to end up like a Jimmy Smith guy. Like 5 years from now, Lockett's still going to be making plays on like third down for a team, and you're going to just feel like he's been around forever. But specific to this situation, and I want to check the Colts. We were talking about injuries earlier. Assuming that Pittman and Pierce are playing and Downs is their third today with Anthony Richardson, I don't love that. Richardson still got a lot to prove to me from a throwing perspective. He hasn't looked great this year when he's done it. So I think I'm going to go with JSN and Watson here. I like those, I like the quarterbacks there more. That Kansas City 49er game, I do believe, despite good defenses, I think there's going to be some points in that one. So I'm going to sit Downs in this situation.
And see, I disagree. I think with Anthony Richardson out there, I think Josh Downs is his primary target. He's been saying it all off season that he's going to get the ball, but man, I'm close on this one. Again, Watson being that fifth read where he shouldn't be. I disagree with the fact that he is and should be, because he is a very talented wide receiver. I think he's better than Dubs. I think he's better than Kraft. I think he's better than Jacobs as far as receiving skills go. But it just isn't seeming like he's getting that look where Downs. And we have very little to look at with Downs and Richardson, because when Richardson was in, Downs was down. And then when Downs came back, Richardson was out. So We haven't seen a whole lot of chemistry between these two this year, but I'm still thinking I'm going to lean over on the risk of Downs over Watson on this one. JSN to me, slam dunk. I do agree. I think that he's better than Tyler Lockett. Not Tyler Lockett prime, mind you, but Tyler Lockett then.
So I'm certainly not I'm certainly humble enough to take the advice of my good friend here. I'm looking at Downs, and the thing with the Colts, because to your point, these quarterbacks seem to like different receivers on this team. So it's almost like you got to give yourself a minute and be like, okay, it's Richardson this week? Okay, Richardson likes Downs. Oh, it's Flacco this week? Well, Flacco's going to Pittman, Pierce, whatnot. But to your point, Downs has got 8, 9, and 7 receptions the last 3 weeks. I didn't realize that. He's got 30 targets the last 3 weeks, 2 touchdowns. What's that? 22 catches for about 200 yards. So he's been better. He's been good with both quarterbacks there for Indy. So I think you're bringing me on to your dark side over there, and I'm gonna shift with you and sit Watson there. I didn't realize Downs was that consistent over the last 3 weeks. That's a lot of targets and a lot of catches.
It's more comfortable over here. Plus, we have pie, Joe. So. The dark side is definitely where it's at. And he says he's bull. I was hungover. Oh man, do I wish that was the case. It's actually kind of funny. I don't think I've been hungover for goodness sakes, probably 5, 6 years, 7 years. I just don't drink anymore. I just can't, man. I got the hangovers ended up being too much for a fella. Are you already day drinking?
No. This is just water for now. I almost did a coffee and Bailey's for this morning, but I'll pace myself a little bit today. But I will say, man, when you turn that TV on at 9:45 and it's a real football game, it's hard to not hit the fridge next.
That is true. I mean, it's actually, I read some safety recommendations about that, how you can fall off your couch.
Yeah.
If you don't have that 12 ounces of balance. And so, I mean, it's a really big deal to make sure you're getting a beer in your hand and watching a football game. And that's just, I'm trying to save your life. You fall off the couch, you hit your head, and that could be it, so.
We're an all-purpose podcast over here.
Football. But I actually, like I said, I mean, it's for me, I've just haven't been much of a drinker ever since about when I turned 21. It's, and especially now that I'm in my 40s, it's the recovery time. Oh boy. Like now that it's 3-4 days, I just can't handle that. I feel like I'm hungover most days anyways after work and everything like that.
Cheers to what now is legal in certain states.
What's that?
I said cheers to what now is legal in certain states.
That is definitely my choice of choices right there.
Choices.
Now without that, I'd probably be a homicidal maniac. And so that's the difference between and that's been since like 95 or something like that. We didn't go over the injury report yet, have we?
No, let's do that here as we're riffing a little bit. Quarterbacks are pretty healthy. I think that Richardson Colt situation was the most volatile of the day. Richardson is starting. Nothing else really to say there. Running backs, anything that's changed since last night? We know Jonathan Taylor's out. We know McCaffrey's still out. Jordan Mason is playing. I see some funky statuses for him here and there, but it looks like he's playing. Kenneth Walker is sick, but it looks like, he's questionable, but it feels like he's going to go also. Aaron Jones is, man, some of these injury reports are really fluctuating this week. Aaron Jones, I feel like I've seen that he wasn't going to play. Now it looks like he's expected to play as of 1 a.m. So that's another one to be on the lookout for. Brian Robinson for the Commanders. It looks like he is expected to play. That's very relevant with them being home against Carolina. They're probably going to run all over them or should be able to. Nick Chubb, again, it's still murky on his status and whether or not he'll get actual touches this week or if they're going to hold him one more. It's that time. You got bye weeks. You got injuries. It's a lot of... You cannot check your lineup at 9 a.m. and then go out for the day. You got to be back on at 12:30 to ensure you've got everything covered.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's especially with the injury reports being the way they are lately, because it's been like, oh, nope, it's trending bad. Guy goes in there, scores you freaking 30 points and on your bench because you're just convinced that he's not going to be playing. So definitely want to stay up to date. If you're following us on Twitter, a lot of times we're talking about it. talking about injury reports and things like that, people status. Always default to Sleeper there, where I'm also an analyst. If anybody didn't know that, I'm an analyst on that app as well. And so anytime you have any questions on there, at Dirty Jobs on there too, as well. What are we talking about here with Russell Wilson, Justin Fields? How's that looking today?
Yes, sir. And only because I'm going to forget if I don't say this now. Cooper Kupp's another one that's gone back and forth, but now he is unlikely to play. So
yep.
Looked like I thought maybe we would see him as of yesterday, but no. And then in Pittsburgh, and I was just, soccer practice with my 2-year-old, having a little water cooler conversation with a guy in a Steeler jacket. And, I said, are you guys really starting Russ Wilson today? And there they are. Both quarterbacks are going to play is the official report. Russ Wilson's going to start. Obviously, it sounds like they'll give Fields a few shots to, run with his legs here or there. I don't know. I don't really get it. When you're a team with a defense and a good running game and good coaching, not overly talented. You've started the season well with Justin Fields. I'm not saying Justin Fields is the next Joe Montana by any means, but the bottom line is he can create out of a broken play. And some of my most fond quarterback memories over the years is Russell Wilson being able to do that in Seattle, but he can no longer do that. So it's just when you think about Denver, Russell Wilson last year, it's really hard to understand why he's coming in for a 4-2 team this week. What do you think?
I completely agree with that. Yeah, no, I mean, because it's like Russell Wilson was fantastic. The way that he used to be able to win you football games is the same exact way I feel like Justin Fields is able to now. The guy's gritty. He doesn't give up. He's not going to get you. There's not going to be any legendary moments or anything like that. But I mean, to me, he's just more explosive. He's more diamond. They're winning with him. I think this is a bad move overall. I think Tomlin is a great coach, though. Very smart. I think he'll see that fast. My goodness sakes, is it from up from the back and the ghost of the past, man. Joseph Clark, how's it going, my man? Good morning. Man, I was just thinking about you just the other day, and I was thinking about, man, I wonder how that Joseph Clark is doing. How's it going, Joe, man? It's good to see you. He says, and he agrees with Fields over Wilson, too. It's almost like a no-brainer, man. To me, they're actually hurting themselves really bad in that aspect. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me because they're winning. They're doing good. I'd rather have Fields as my commander. Honestly, I'd rather have Fields over Knicks in Denver. I would have loved that if they would have been able to pick him up. I think Fields is a great quarterback. He reminds me a little bit of Tebow. Might not be all the way there in the talent department, but when it comes to passion and heart, give it to me. I love it.
It takes a fantasy relevance off the board too, because I mean, you can sit there, whether it's DFS, whether it's a league, and Fields is a viable play because of the way he runs the ball. Russell Wilson, I don't consider to be a viable play quite yet. He's going to have to show me something, but with Joe Clark in there, one guy that's on my mind, and we talked about him last night from a DFS perspective because he's still a little bit on the cheaper side given his production. But what about Mr. Neighbors, Joe Clark? As fellow Giant fans, and we had the taste of it when Odell came on, but to hit lightning in a bottle again with Neighbors at the wide receiver position for them, I mean, it's the only offense they've had all season long. But at least they hit on that pick. That was nice to see, and I know Joey Clark is enjoying himself some Daniel Jones to Neighbors, because if I remember correctly too, I believe we've got one of the last few standing Daniel Jones loyalists with us right now in Joe Clark.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like Malik Neighbors a lot this year. I actually liked him preseason. I was always on the fence between him and Marvin Harrison Jr., and I ended up in a lot of shares of Malik Neighbors. Now, not that it would have probably been a bad thing, although barring injury, of course, but concussion. But with Marvin Harrison Jr. and between the two, Malik Neighbors has definitely outshined on that. Yeah, that Giants team's looking better and better every single week. It seems like they're hitting on a few of these other picks. I feel like that's another case right there is where you've got Trey Tucker versus Devin Singletary. It's like, man, that guy was looking really, really good out there. He was doing everything they needed to do on offense. I don't know, to me, and they're going to go a different direction with that. They're going to be splitting it, but I just don't think Devin Singletary's ever been that good of a running back. to me, he's a great change of pace back. He's a great running back too. I think they should move him to that position. I think the Giants have some pieces. I think they're starting to get put together a little bit better. I'm excited to see Malik Neighbors again today. Again, because I got heavy shares of him in all my dynasty leagues this year. And again, it was in between him and Marvin Harrison Jr. I didn't really like a whole lot of running backs out of that draft.
How do you feel about Philly today in general? I guess fantasy wise, but like, you think they bounce back offense? I mean, these giant Philly games the last few years have been pretty crazy. You think Philly bounces back today? And people talk about them like they're 1-5 too. What Philly's 3-2?
Yep, 3-2, and yeah, they are talking about them like this is a team that has no shot at any postseason hopes or anything like that. That's just probably more credit to their fans. They expect to be undefeated, win every damn football game, or else they're going to talk about it. That team's been looking better and better every single week, but it's crazy. They had that little hiccup 2 years ago where their offense just went stagnant, right? And it just hasn't bounced back from that. It just hasn't seemed like it's gotten to where they are a team that you can count on to be consistent. I think against the Giants, and it's crazy because we were talking about this last night too. Daniel Jones is like the last time he played the Eagles was the 2022 wild card game against them. And then before that, it was 2020 because he is always somehow injured when they're playing the Eagles. So there's not a whole lot of history there between the two against the two teams. But I think this is a game the Giants can actually win. I think the Giants can beat the Eagles, but I also feel like this is going to be a score fest. I think they're going to be slugging it out. I think that they both have like most of their team back as far as, your key players, your running backs, your receivers and everything like that. It should be a heck of a game to watch, but yeah, no, Philly, I think they're going to be okay. I think that they're going to be, I think Saquon Barkley's going to just go bananas today.
He was minus 150. I think the first thing I did last night after the show was look at his anytime touchdown prop line, and I believe it was minus 150 last night. And they're going to feed him. I was encouraged with Philly last week to see both AJ Brown and Devonta Smith finally have like a good game the same week, because you got a lot of that the first half of last year. But that's another crazy one. AJ Brown went on like a Joe DiMaggio 8-week stretch last year, right? With like I don't know how many, what was it, double-digit catches in a row, or he had over 100 yards, I think, 8 games in a row last year. And then all of a sudden just became pedestrian after that as they kind of fell apart both physically and mentally. But this is one of those weeks too. I mean, that Philly Giant game, that's an interesting game, and standing wise, it isn't even that relevant, but you got 49ers Chiefs, you got Detroit, Minnesota. There's some real barn burners this week where, by Tuesday morning, there's going to be a couple teams that I think are going to look like, okay, here, this is your best team in the AFC right now. This is your best team in the NFC right now. And I feel like things are going to fall in line a little bit after this week based on the matchups.
Yeah, nope, I agree with that as well. I think that we're going to see like a little bit more consistency coming out of these teams. And we're past the first hump right here, and you're starting to see a lot of teams get into their groove and what they're going to want to do and how they want to play football. And it's been working out for a lot of these teams and things like that. So,
let me pick your brain on a guy. Oh, here we go. April.
Right here. This beautiful woman right there, April Gilbert, says she needs help out of Eckler, Tracy, Smith, and Jigba. And I guess I got the running back wrong on the Giants. It's Tyrone Tracy. Smith and Jigba and McLeod, we can only put in 2. Joe, lead me off here. What do you
you never root for injuries? You never root for injuries, but man, it would have been really nice if Brian Robinson, if you're an Eckler owner, and if Brian Robinson and or Singletary didn't play this week, because you'd be sitting on a gold mine of a backup running back with a good matchup, ready to eat again, as Tracy did last week. I think given the situation, I can't go McLeod. I know he's been relevant. I get it, but I'm not going to go McLeod here. Man, this is really hard. Home against Carolina, you feel like Washington's going to run through them, but what does that actually mean for a guy like Eckler, who's in more passing situations? I could see him going either way. I'm talking myself into Tracy. So I think Tracy's going to get pretty much, 50% of the running back share today with Singletary. I think I'm talking myself into Tracy. Jeff would tell us to go Eckler. Ty goes to the running back. Are we in a PPR here, Mikey? Do you know?
Yeah, half PPR.
Half PPR. Man, I'll be curious to hear what you think. I think I'm going to go Tracy and Eckler. But I'm on the fence.
I think I'm with you up until Eckler. I think I'm going to lean Smith and Jigba. Yeah. I think Tyrone Tracy still gets fed. I think he's better than Devin Singletary. I think he's a guy that you're going to be able to get involved in your lineup, and I think he's going to help them win football games. I think it's pretty obvious to see his running difference versus Devin Singletary, and Devin Singletary hasn't looked bad. Again, no. I don't hate Devin Singletary. I just don't think he's a running back starter. I think he's a running back 2, change of pace back, and one of the best in the game as far as that goes, but I don't think he's a guy that you want to lean out a whole awful lot and plus risk re-injury. And Brian Robinson, man, it's tough though. I'm actually going to lean on you. I'm going to say Tracy and Eckler as well. Smith and Jigba is just too inconsistent. You know, he should be better. He should have a lot more production, and it sucks because he'll probably go out there and get you. You know, it'll be the week that Lockett doesn't produce, but Jackson Smith does. But do you want to risk that where we can almost guarantee touches with Tracy and Eckler? So it's tough, but I'm going to lean Tracy and Eckler as well. You got me convinced on that one.
You know, you say it made me think like it's funny. Like what, 2 years ago, Buffalo's backfield was Singletary and Zach Moss, which is a random thought just thinking about Singletary, but he was productive in Buffalo without ever passing the eye test. Like Singletary, he doesn't look fast. I guess you could say he looks a little shifty, but he's not overly powerful. He's not overly fast. He has made himself a nice career given that talent. I'll give him credit for that.
You know who he reminds me of is Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard, like when he was running with Ezekiel Elliott, he looked like the best running back in the game, but it's because of that change of pace. It's because they're going out there where you've got a guy pounding it. Exactly. A shifty back coming out there. Be able to move on you when you're expecting this guy to plow you versus he's just going to juke right around you. It's 2 different games of football that you're playing right there, you know? And so, I mean, you get that guy that comes in there and like, you're ready to go smash him because you've smashed this dude 10 times in a row. All of a sudden, yoink, he's gone. And that's why these change of pace backs are really, really good, but not consistent. You know, they're just not a consistent back because you're going to go juke. Well, those linebackers are going to let you do that once or twice, but then after that, they're going to move on you. They're going to watch your chest and they're going to smash your ass. Exactly. Bam.
Real quick, you mentioned Tony Pollard, and I think, and it's not often that we say this, but I think it actually is worth talking about the Titans for a minute. And right off the bat, I missed an injury earlier, and again, Tony Pollard. No Will Levis today. He is out, and we have got, and now it's, oh my God, who's starting for them today?
Oh my
I'm losing the name now. Hold on.
Yep, I was just looking at something. I saw that. Let's see here. I heard Nick Chubb got upgraded to healthy. Nick Chubb is playing today. Kenneth Walker will be playing today.
I'm happy for Chubb.
Yeah, for sure. No, me too.
This is unbelievable. I've got the name right on the tip of my tongue, and I cannot remember who is starting for Tennessee today instead of Will Levis.
Right. It's this is
Mason Rudolph.
There you go.
My God. See, folks, now you know we're live, because if not, that shit would have been edited.
Right. Yeah, we would have cut that out for sure. But Mason Rudolph starting for them. Down tick to all the receivers, but were we really targeting receivers over there anyways? Like,
no. But the whole thing, though, was Tony Pollard you mentioned, and it's so funny because Pollard goes there last year, right? They sign him to be the number 1 back there after Dallas, and he never really got off the ground. Never really did much last year. Now, their whole offense stunk, and they started a rookie quarterback halfway through the season or whatever. But now, and then Pollard starts slow this year, but now all of a sudden, Pollard's had like 3 kind of like legit, okay, I'm a running back 1 all of a sudden. Which I found which was interesting to me. It kind of snuck up on me looking at that. But then now Mason Rudolph, you probably go back to not being able to play Pollard.
Right. Actually, I feel like Pollard and Tajay might be the only two guys you can play on that offense today, because I feel like you're going to have to lean heavily on that running game. Then that's going to be the only impact. Likely going to be playing from behind those. So, I mean, they're probably just going to have to toss it and toss a lot of interceptions and things like that. Man, it's bad right now. It's tough.
Pollard's gone 15 DraftKings points 4 out of 5 weeks this year. I wouldn't have guessed that, man. Tennessee's a funny franchise. They're a weird, you can never really figure them out. They get good coaching with a bad team, they overachieve. Then they get some players, and then they underachieve. They get the rookie quarterback. He throws 4 touchdowns. His debut last year, does absolutely nothing from there. Tennessee's always hard to figure out.
Right. Yeah, Tennessee, and it's crazy because they always end up in the mix too, right? They always end up somehow being a relevant football team. We always usually are talking about them when we're talking about playoffs.
They're never embarrassing, even if the talent is low. I guess good coaching.
Yeah, and I mean, if you haven't, the Bills playing them today, I think that Bills defense is probably a lock it in. Because they ought to be able to stomp the mud hole in this team. But, that is a team too. Tennessee does have a decent defense. That's one thing that people always discredit. And yeah, so I think that defense can hold up. But again, they're going to have to run the ball. They don't have much of a passing attack, even with Will Levis out there. DeAndre Hopkins is not the same DeAndre Hopkins as we've seen. We're really seeing a drop in his production. Michael Pittman looking good today too. Just dropped right now. Michael Pittman will be active today. Would you start Michael Pittman over Wan'Dale Robinson?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Man, I want to like Pittman so much. Even when they stink, he was starting to become consistent, but now with all this quarterback bullshit, and you pointed out the Wan'Dale Robinson thing last week. I mean, he's a freaking target machine. Now, I know Neighbors is back, so, I'd probably go Pittman. Pittman's got the higher ceiling. Pittman could easily lay up 125 and a touchdown or two if Richardson can get him the ball. But that being said, man, and especially from a DFS perspective, you really can't sleep on Wan'Dale Robinson. If you're in a PPR, he's good for double digits every week, which is kind of a sneaky, kind of snuck up on you, I'd say, for the year.
Yeah, I think even with Malik Neighbors out there in this matchup today, with the way I think that they're going to have to score points, I think Wan'Dale Robinson is actually more of a solid play here. But it's very close. That's why I asked it, because I'm on the fence with both of those guys. I've got them both ready to rock. Alec Pierce playing today too. So,
if Flacco was playing,
receivers that Anthony Richardson doesn't throw to,
how would you feel about them fantasy-wise today if it was Flacco? Would that change your outlook?
Everything would be different. Yeah, no, Flacco throws the ball. Anthony Richardson seems to make a lot of decisions with his legs, and he makes them late. To me, he doesn't make appropriate decisions with his legs. He just continuously does it play after play. And when he does try to throw it to the receiver, he doesn't seem like he's on the same page. He doesn't seem like they're on the same step. It just doesn't. They feel like they're about one step away from being able to put together a really good offense, but they just can't seem to all stay on the field at the same time, including Jonathan Taylor, who won't be there today.
Yeah, Taylor's been frustrating, man. The top of these drafts, we'll have to do. If you take the top 10 picks of a redraft league this year, it's been a nightmare.
Yeah,
I mean, McCaffrey hasn't seen the field yet, and he was in there because we've talked about this enough to know
Consensus 101.
We're the bitter ex-girlfriend of the 49ers right now based on that bullshit. Tyreek Hill's been worthless because of the quarterback issues. Other than Justin Jefferson, who's been good, but he hasn't been he's been like high teens, which is great, but it's not what you come to think you want to get out of a Justin Jefferson. The top of the draft board, and it's been a rough 7 weeks to start the season.
Yeah, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson. To my downfall, I wish Bijan Robinson, because I was like, he should be the 101 this year over C-Mac, which was a brilliant take, because C-Mac didn't play football. And that's the only reason that's a good take, is because of that. But if you redid the draft right now, is Christian McCaffrey a first-round pick or a second-round pick?
Fuck. That's a hell of a question. I don't freaking know. That is, yeah. And what do you do with Tyreek Hill if you redrafted today?
Right.
I mean, I guess with Tua coming back now, they say, but you don't know how long. I mean, he's a half a hit away from being done now.
Right. It just has to take the right circumstance. And I mean, the next one could be the last one.
Yes.
So and we've seen what their backup capabilities are bringing to the table. They don't have a back. Sorry about that.
Right
so we got that guy coming back today. So like I said, a full complement of receivers for Anthony Richardson not to throw to. What do you think about the running back situation in Indianapolis today? Are we starting any of the running backs? Trey Sermon, Josh Goodson?
See, those two guys, man, that is the fantasy yin-yang, right? And what do? Sermon, if you look at the last couple of weeks, Sermon's going to get you double-digit carries. He's going to average 3 yards a carry, and you got a 50-50 shot of him getting in the end zone. Goodson probably isn't getting in the end zone based on how they've used him. But if you're in a PPR, he's going to catch a few. He's going to rush a few. But game script could play. I feel like Sermon's the more between the tackle guy where Goodson, I like a guy like Goodson more. I like those PPR points. That being said, if you're not if your league is standard scoring, you probably want Sermon because he's the better shot in the end zone. Is that how you're reading this one?
Yeah, I think Trey Sermon's going to be the red zone guy. I think between the 20s, I think that's going to be your Goodson, your Goodson calls right there. And then try to punch it in with him. But I'm not excited about either one of these guys. I'm not even going to be looking at because I'm sure that their price in DFS is lovely, but I'm not going to be chasing that either, even in DFS. Although I do like the matchup versus Miami, although I do like the fact that this could easily be a game where you get ahead on. I mean, they've proven it time and time. Miami should be able to move the ball against Indianapolis. Miami probably won't. I mean, there's no reason to believe that Huntley's going to come out there and be able to throw the ball effectively or anything like that. Again, to me, it shouldn't be that hard. I'm not an NFL quarterback, but if I made it to that level, throwing to people should be pretty in my repertoire of things to do. At least throw it close, which is all you have to do with Waddle, which is all you have to do with Tyreek Hill.
Screens.
And even outside of that, you just have to hand it to A-Chain. That's it. Done. Game over. You win. And they're still not being able to do that. So I think that this is a game where Indy could get, but I'm still not excited about Trey Sermon or Tyler Goodson. I'm not. I'd like to be, but I can't be.
I feel like A-Chain had the chance a few weeks back to just explode. Right, he was really good last year. He split time with Mostert, obviously. He's the younger guy. He's the flashier guy. They're both really fast. Mostert goes out a few weeks back. You're without Mostert. You're without Tua. And you just feel like A-Chain was just gonna, and I don't know, it hasn't really happened. I mean, I guess that's what happens when you're facing 8 and 9 in the box because you have no QB. But that's kind of been a disappointing fantasy situation, is that Miami running game, which was so lucrative last year.
Yeah, A-Chain just hasn't been the same guy either. I mean, it's just I think it's because they're just going to stack the box and make you throw against them. And that's really hard to do. I mean, you really can't throw. It shouldn't be hard, but it is. They're not able to do it. So just keep stacking the box, make them run against you, make them run against you, make them run against you, and stop the run. I mean, and so that's what they're able to do. We won't see much productive like that, until we're able to start selling out the safeties and start getting some depth on those targets, because that's what's killing that team right now. And again, it's not like I'm a huge Tyler Huntley fan, but I've always been he's Lamar Jackson light. He's really good in my opinion, but just hasn't been able to put it together.
One more real quick that I've been meaning to pick your brain on, because it just keeps on coming up for me, whether it's my leagues or when I'm going through a DFS lineup. And I'll just, it's the 3 receivers in San Francisco, and Debo, Ayuk, and George Kittle. And from fantasy wise, man, this has become an aggravating situation. Now on the bright side, George Kittle's having a great year. I mean, he's been good, I think, every single week except maybe one. So, and when we've been down on tight ends in general, Kittle's really carrying the position pretty much right now. But whether it's, it's not even about Ayuk or Samuel, but there hasn't been a lot of consistency out of those two guys. And for me, I traded Ayuk in a league this week. I considered sitting them for Pittman this week in another league. I'm going to play them because they're playing the Chiefs, and I think they're going to have to score some points. But the 49er offense, fantasy-wise, and Mason looked really good at first. He's been a good replacement for McCaffrey, but trying to figure out Samuel or Ayuk or Kittle week to week, you feel like you want one of them. You want some of that stock. I'm just not sure where to go with it this year.
Yeah, and see, I feel like Ayuk will actually have an uptick this week. I think that we're going to start seeing him start kind of settling into that contract a little bit better, being utilized more. I think Christian McCaffrey being out hurts his production. I think that you're starting to have to throw the ball a little bit quicker. Mason isn't the guy that's been, he's filled in great. Don't get me wrong. But they're not able to lean on that running game and passing game out of the backfield as much as they were with Christian McCaffrey. Again, the 1-on-1 for a dang reason. Christian McCaffrey is an amazing football player, so it's big shoes to fill. But I think Ayuk actually benefits from that because it gives that little bit extra time to be able to break loose. You're not going to be able to suck linebackers out the way you are against Jordan Mason. I think we see Ayuk have an uptick when we see Christian McCaffrey come back, but I do think we do see a volume uptick happening over the past few weeks. That's going to translate into better production out of Ayuk as well. But I remember I was talking to you about that trade yesterday. I still feel like that you made out, especially on a single quarterback league with 3 quarterbacks on your roster. That means you got 2 dead spots every single week that you cannot get points out of no matter what. So feel like you improved your team a lot with that trade.
And the guy came back too. You got to love it, right? When they say no on a Wednesday and then you get the text a couple of days later. You still want to do this? That feels pretty good.
Right. That's the Costanza trade, right? Stanza.
Yes, absolutely.
Got to drop him with that last moment. Hey, bud, that's the end of the questions that we have today. Do you have anything else to add before we call it a day here?
No, I'm seeing looking to see if the Patriots got any magic here. It looks like Drake May's driving them down into the red zone. They're down 25-16. I would say this London game is the low light of the day. This is a hell of a Sunday worth of NFL matchups this week. So
yeah, it looks like a KJ Osborne touchdown, as a matter of fact, right when you said that. So KJ Osborne looks like Drake May pounded it in finally. Maybe we'll have a game there. But
yeah, now they're going for 2.
Still, if you're excited about this game, I feel sorry for your fanhood.
Although you're a diehard. They're a diehard if they are.
Yeah, right. That's it. Yeah, like I said, as a Broncos fan, I get it because I'm going to be going for the Broncos today. Why? I have no idea. It's like being a Red Sox fan. Why? I have no idea. But you know what does suck is Yankees. God, I hate you.
First World Series in 15 years.
You know what? And the Mets could go, right? The Mets, they have an uphill battle, but they could go, right? We could have a Subway Series.
They could. They're down 3-2. So really, it's possible.
So they just got to win 2 more games and we got a Subway Series. That's always cool, although I hate New York sports. It's kind of funny. It's kind of like the yin and the yang. Like without New York sports, I wouldn't have as much Boston love as I had because of that rivalry made that team like deeper and deeper and deeper, made me hate the Yankees more and more because god dang, they ruined a lot of my hopes and dreams.
They need each other. Real quick, we're not a baseball show, but pregame of one of the playoff games the other night, and I don't know, the main MLB pregame, it's David Ortiz, A-Rod, Jeter, and whoever the play-by-play guy is, and they're talking about rivalries as they were previewing. I don't know, something about the Dodgers and Padres, I think it was, that's become quite the rivalry. And they let Jeter talk last. So it was A-Rod, it was Ortiz, it was the play-by-play guy. Yeah, this Dodger-Padre rivalry is really getting heated. And the whole time you see Jeter on the side, like literally trying not to shake his head. And he's like biting his tongue. And it got to Jeter. And he basically is like, if you're going to try to sell me on the 2024 Dodger-Padres touching the 1999, 2002, Red Sox-Yankee rivalry, no thank you. But, those years of that is probably the best rivalry in the history of American sports.
It's some of the best baseball you'll ever see in the game ever. I just remember that 2004 ALCS where Boston was down 0-3 and they came back and won it. Like, regardless of who won that series right there, they were going to destroy whoever they played in the World Series.
You're right,
they were playing at such an elite level of baseball. Both teams. I mean, there was so many of those games that went 9 extra innings. And I mean, there was just tons of great baseball.
And as much as I hate the Red Sox, a testament to Boston fandom, when you bring up the 2004 playoffs around here, the first thing they talk about is the freaking Dave Roberts stolen base, which was game 4, right? Like, so like it's in bed, like that was the start of that comeback. And I always find it impressive that is like what the fans think of first.
Because, I've seen actually Terry Francona talk about how he was sweating so hard because he knew that if he gets tagged right there, Terry Francona probably gets fired. Probably loses his job as the coach. And it was within an inch. And I mean, it was so close. There's even a lot of people who say he was out because it was so close. I think he was safe. He looked safe to me.
I thought he was safe, but it was close.
It was damn close, man. And yeah, that's exactly what ignited that whole entire thing. And man, that was some amazing baseball. Honestly, I haven't been able to watch baseball the same since then because they just lost that whole thing. You know, Big Papi coming up and smashing it. Mariano Rivera coming out there and closing it. I mean, there was so many cool things that happened around that time that just, I don't think we'll ever see that again. It's too much commercialized, and now they got all kinds of rules, and yeah, screw it.
Don Zimmer and Pedro Martinez aren't walking through that door.
Oh, man, who's your daddy? I bet.
Who's your daddy?
Oh, yeah. See, I love that old rivalry. I miss those times a lot, for sure.
Hopefully we will be.
Guys, we don't have any more questions. Good luck on your week 7 matchups. If you guys have any questions in the meantime, hit us up on Twitter at Dirty Jobs, at Drop the Leash JC. Make sure you're following at Triple Play Fantasy for all your things, all sports. They cover baseball, football, hockey, basketball. I think they've got a badminton team, maybe curling as well. So you're going to want to follow for everything sports. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you again next week with Jeff. Jeff will be back next week, guys. So thank you so much.